Good afternoon, students. Today we'll discuss the types of polarizations. We know that whenever external electric field is applied to any dielectric material, the material gets polarized. That means its positive and negative charges get separated from each other. And we say the material is polarized. Now, there are generally three types of polarization process. The first one we call as electronic polarization, which we have already discussed theoretically. We have talked about non-polar dielectrics, and you remember that in case of non-polar dielectrics or non-polar molecules, the positive and negative charges, that is, in other words, nucleus and electron cloud, which are oppositely charged thing, their centers lie at the same point. That means center of gravity of positive charge and center of gravity of electron cloud lie at the same point when there is no electric field applied to them. Under the influence of an external applied electric field, the positive charge and negative charge are slightly separated from each other. The positive charge and negative charge are slightly separated from each other when electric field is applied from outside. Therefore, dipoles, electric dipoles are created and we get dipole moment. And we can say the material, the dielectric, is polarized. So that type of polarization which occurs for non-polar dielectrics is called electronic polarization. So again, in case of electronic polarization, in absence of the external field, in the absence of any external field, the center of gravity of positive and negative charges coincide with each other. Now, when external field is applied, then the center of gravity of positive charge and that of negative charge get separated from each other and electric dipoles are created. That type of polarization is called electronic polarization. In case of ionic materials, that means in materials where ions are already been present in absence of any external field, then they are already separated from each other. Since we have ions, these ions are already separated from each other. But whenever you are supplying external electric field onto these materials, then the position of positive and negative ions get more separated from each other. They are already been separated because they are ions. So now, due to application of the electric field will push the positive ions and repel the negative ions. As a result, the gap between positive and negative ions will be increased. And that type of polarization is called ionic polarization. And third type is orientational polarization. We have talked about polar molecules. Orientation polarization occurs for polar molecules. So we know that in case of polar molecules, generally formed by two or more different atoms to form a molecule like H2O. So in those type of polar molecules, in absence of any electric field also, the center of gravity of positive charge and center of gravity of negative charge are separated from each other. So already the centers of positive and negative charge are separated. That means there are already electronic dipoles. But as we have discussed earlier, these molecules are randomly oriented. That means the dipoles are randomly oriented. And that's why the vector sum of the dipole moments for the bulk material will be zero. So in absence of external electric field, though there was a large number of dipoles, but the dipoles being randomly oriented, net dipole moment was zero. But when we apply an external electric field to those type of material, due to application of external electric field, these dipoles are now oriented in the direction of the electric field. So when external electric field is applied on these type of molecules, these type of materials, then the dipoles get oriented in the direction of the electric field and they are aligned in the direction of the electric field. So since due to application of external field, dipoles get oriented, this type of polarization is called orientational polarization. We are basically interested in electronic and orientational polarization. So first, we will talk about electronic polarization in detail. And our objective is to estimate the electronic polarizability. Now we will estimate the expression of electronic polarization, and that means we will estimate the electronic polarizability. For that, as we have seen that it is applicable only for non-polar materials, we consider a non-polar material. And we are talking about a single atom. This is a single atom, and we assume the radius of the atom is A. Radius of the atom is A, and atomic number is Z. That means the amount of positive charge can be said as Z into E plus ZE. Plus ZE is the total charge, total positive charge, whereas total negative charge will be minus ZE. According to the classical model, we have nucleus at the center which contains the positive charge. So this is your nucleus, and electrons are surrounding this nucleus. Only in the quantum model, in the Bohr model, it is said that electrons are rotating around the nucleus in different orbits. But if I just use the normal classical concept, then we just can say that electrons are distributed throughout this atom. That's why we can say electron cloud. So we are saying these electrons of charge minus ZE, total electronic charge will be minus ZE, E being the charge of a single electron, and atomic number is Z. So total charge minus ZE is distributed uniformly within this sphere of radius A. Therefore, the volume charge density of negative charge will be, what volume charge density means? Total charge per unit volume. Here, what is the amount of total charge? This is the total charge for negative charges. So this is minus ZE by the volume. We have assumed that radius of the atom, radius of the sphere is A. Therefore, volume will be 4 by 3 pi AQ. So this one is your volume charge density for negative charge. That means if I know this charge density for any small region, suppose this is your region, suppose you are interested only within this region. So yes, I am drawing a small sphere here. If I know the radius of this sphere, that means I know the volume of this sphere, this small sphere, I multiply that volume with rho to get the charge within this small sphere. That's why we are estimating the volume charge density of the whole sphere or whole atom. So this is known. Now what we are doing, you observe here the center of gravity of positive and negative charge coincide because it is a non-polar material. Now we apply an electric field. We apply an electric field in a direction. So we apply an electric field. So what that electric field will do, we are applying this electric field from outside. So this external electric field will try to push the positive charge. That means it will push this nucleus, it will push this nucleus in its direction, and it will repel the electron cloud. So it will try to separate the positive charge from negative charge. And so observe, it is now trying to push the nucleus and electron cloud in the opposite direction. As a result, it is actually trying to separate the positive charge from negative charge. So that means it is actually supplying some amount of force. So what is the amount of force it is giving on the nucleus? It is giving a force of charge into electric field. What is the force due to an electric field? Force due to an electric field can be written as Q into E. E is the electric field and Q is the charge on which the force is applied. Therefore, if I say the force, the electric field is applied on the positive charge, then the force will be ZE into E, because charge of positive charge is plus ZE, so plus ZE into E. Whereas if we assume that the force is acting on the electron cloud, then it is minus Z into E. Okay. So this is the amount of force which is applied on that electron cloud. And this force tries to separate the electron cloud from the nucleus. Okay. So whenever this force is applied and it separates the nucleus from electron cloud, like this figure. So now you observe the positive and negative charges are separated from each other. Positive and negative charges are separated from each other. What happens if we have some positive charge near to a negative charge? Suppose we have some positive charge Q1 and we have some negative charge Q2 separated by a distance r. So whenever two charges are separated from some distance, then Coulomb force will act on them. You have studied Coulomb force in your class 11 or 12 standard. So there will be a force called Coulomb force acting on these charges. If the charges are opposite charges, then the force will be attractive force. That means due to this Coulomb force, the two charges now try to combine with each other. So the separation should be decreased due to this Coulomb force. And what was that force? If you remember, the force was 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by the square of the separation. That was your force, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by r square. Remember? So that was the force. If the two forces, two charges are similar charges, then it will be repulsive force. If the two charges are opposite charges, then it will be an attractive force. So in this case, whenever the positive and negative charges are slightly separated from each other, then Coulomb force will appear and it will try to combine the positive and negative charges again. That means the Coulomb force will try to make the center of gravity of positive and negative charge same again. So now there will be Coulomb force. Now, in whatever Coulomb force you have used before, that means the Q1, Q2 are separated by r distance. That means whatever Coulomb force you have used before, in those formula, what you have assumed that Q1 and Q2 are separated from each other. But you observe that our two charges, positive and negative charges, are not completely separated. They are not completely separated. Observe this figure. They are not completely separated from each other. If it was like this is one charge, this was another charge, we can easily use Coulomb force. But that means we can use the Coulomb formula. But the problem is this, that here that this nucleus is still within the electron cloud. The nucleus, this positive charge, the whole positive charge is still within the electron cloud. Only the center of gravity has shifted, but it's not outside the electron cloud. In that case, how will you estimate the charge? How will you estimate the formula of the force? According to Gauss law, in that situation, it is easy to determine it in this way. If we assume that the separation between positive and negative charges Z is D, like here we have assumed the separation between positive and negative charges is D. Then what we have to do, we have to draw a sphere with the radius D. That means we need to draw a sphere. We need to draw a sphere of radius D. So this is the sphere whose radius is D. So we need to think of a sphere of radius same as the distance between positive and negative charges. We need to think of a sphere whose radius is same as the distance between positive and negative charges. If we can think of this sphere, then we can find out the charge of this sphere. What will be the charge of this sphere? The charge density is rho. We have already estimated the charge density rho, that is charge per unit volume. We will multiply it with the volume of this sphere. We know the radius of the sphere is d. So volume will be 4 by 3 pi d cube. So if we put the value of rho, which is already been estimated, then our charge, that means total electronic charge within this sphere of radius d will be this. This is our charge. We have to use this charge in the Coulomb's force formula. So our Coulomb's force formula is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by d square. Our formula is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by d square. So 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught d square, same. Now, what is Q1 and Q2? Q1 is the electronic charge and Q2 is the positive charge. So Q1 here is your Q and Q2 is charge of the nucleus, which is ZD. But we cannot write Q equals to minus ZD because you observe this amount of charge is outside the sphere. This electronic charge is outside the sphere. That's why we cannot use minus ZD. A part of minus ZD is actually considered here. And what part? Only that charge which is included within the sphere whose radius is same as the distance between positive and negative charge. That is the assumption you need to consider from Gauss law. If we use that concept and find out our charge and then find out the Coulomb force. So if we just estimate the electronic charge density, then we can find out the amount of charge lying within this small sphere. What sphere? The sphere whose radius is same as the separation between positive and negative Coulomb. And then only we can find out the Coulomb force, that is the attractive force between the positive and negative charges when the positive and negative charges are separated due to application of external field. When there was no external electric field, there was no Coulomb force because center of gravities are lying or coinciding with each other. But when external field is applied, then the centers are separated, and that's why Coulomb force appears. But since the electron and nucleus are not completely separated, some portion, or better to say, the nucleus is lying within a portion of the electron cloud. This nucleus is still lying within the electron cloud. Therefore, we need to apply the Gauss law to find out that amount of electron cloud which is actually taking part in the Coulomb force. So it is the Q charge, Q amount of electron cloud which is actually taking part, not minus ZD. Only the Q amount is this part, only this part. D is much smaller than A. So only Q amount is taking part in that Coulomb force. And that value, if I put the value of Q in this formula, then we get F2 is this. So this is our Coulomb force. So we have now two opposite forces. One force comes due to the external electric field. We have already estimated that field. This force. That force was minus ZD into E. So one force was minus ZD into E, which was trying to separate the electron cloud from the nucleus, separate the electron or negative charges from positive charges, and the Coulomb force is trying to combine this positive with negative charges. So these two forces are acting opposite to each other. So when equilibrium comes, then these two forces balance each other. And under that balance condition, we can write the first force Z minus, actually there is a negative symbol, but negative cancel out. So minus Z into E, and this F2 was, if you observe it, F2 was minus Z square E square by 4 pi epsilon naught D by AQ, that one. So from that, we can find out the separation between positive and negative charges in equilibrium. So when these two forces, these opposing forces, balance each other, then the separation between positive and negative charges remains this. We observe here our radius of the atom is there, applied electric field is there, and the atomic number is there. So if I change the electric field, separation will be changed. Of course, more electric field, more the separation, common sense. But you observe it depends on the type of molecule or type of atom you are choosing. Because for different atom, Z and A will be different, and accordingly D will be different. Now, we are interested in? We are actually interested in to find out the atomic polarizability for this type of polarization. So how will you estimate it? Now we know that the positive and negative charges, if I only drawing the center, if this is the positive charge center and this is the negative charge center, they are separated by D. Only the center I'm drawing. Don't think these are the positive and negative charges, because positive charge is still lying within the electron cloud. But I am only drawing the centers. So centers are separated by distance D. And this one is positive charge ZD. Therefore, what will be the induced dipole moment? We know that how dipole moment is defined: charge into separation. So charge is ZD into separation D. So this is your induced dipole moment. So this is the induced dipole moment. So put the value of D here. If we put the value of D, if I put the value of D, so ZD into ZD cancel out. So our dipole moment remains 4 pi epsilon naught AQB. So this is your expression of induced dipole moment. So you observe induced dipole moment depends on basically two variables: the radius of the atom and electric field. And we know that dipole moment is proportional to electric field, and that proportionality constant is called polarizability. So P cannot be written as alpha E. Since we are talking about electronic polarization, instead of writing only alpha, I am giving a subscript E here to remind us that we are talking about electronic polarization. Similarly, for ionic polarization, the polarizability can be written as alpha I. Similarly, for orientation, alpha O. So if alpha is the electronic polarization, then electronic polarizability, then the dipole moment can be written as alpha into E. So if we compare these two, what is our alpha? Alpha is 4 pi epsilon naught AQ. So electronic polarizability can be written as 4 pi epsilon naught AQ. This proof is important for your test also. These are the other derivation as I was mentioning. So if you are asked, find out or derive the electronic polarizability, that's how we will estimate it. So what you have to do, you have to find out the two forces: one force due to the applied electric field and other force due to the Coulomb's law. And then at equilibrium, these two forces balance each other, and from that you can estimate it. Now you observe that alpha E is proportional to AQ. That's why you may be asked, so that electronic polarizability is proportional to volume of the atom. That is the type of question which is generally asked in university paper. So that electronic polarizability is proportional to volume of the atom. So you will say, you will first find out this expression, then you will say volume of the atom is 4 by 3 pi AQ. Since electronic polarizability is proportional to AQ, electronic polarizability is also proportional to volume of the atom. Simple. So that's how we can estimate electronic polarizability. Next, we have ionic and orientational polarizability. Now, what was ionic polarizability or ionic polarization? As we have already discussed, that in case of ionic compounds, that means we have already ions present. So positive and negative ions are already present. And since these two opposite charges are present, they must be separated from by a small distance in absence of any external field. So already the ions are present and there is some separation between them. That means already dipoles exist in ionic polarization. But when we apply electric field, then this electric field will try to displace these charges in opposite directions. That means separation between the ions, separation between positive and negative ions will be increased. And due to that change in separation, a polarization occurs, and that polarizability is called ionic polarizability. So that will be called ionic polarizability. That will be sufficient to know. Whereas in case of orientational polarization, as we have discussed, this is for polar molecules. Dipoles are already been created, but these dipoles are randomly oriented. So vector sum of dipole moment is 0. but whenever external electric field is applied, then that external field tries to rotate, try to orient the dipoles in the direction of it, and we get a net dipole moment. So then the material gets polarized, and the orientational polarizability can be expressed in this form. We are not deriving it. You just observe it can be written in this form. So it depends on the dipole moment and temperature. So this is the only type of polarization where polarizability is inversely proportional to temperature.